The silence after the final scene said it all. Shahar Isaac, standing as Simon Peter, didn't just finish another season. He finished something that will haunt fans forever. The Chosen Season 5 doesn't end the way anyone expected. No, this isn't a celebration. It's a collapse, a heart-shattering unraveling of friendship, faith, and purpose. The emotional storm that hits in the final moments leaves characters and viewers on their knees. What began as a season of questions ends with answers no one wanted to hear. And at the center of it all is a moment so raw, so devastating, it forces even the strongest disciples to fall apart. This isn't just a plot twist. This is emotional devastation wrapped in silence, betrayal, and tears. And Shahar Isaac, he delivers a performance that might just be the most powerful moment in the entire series. Season 5 of The Chosen doesn't gently lead viewers toward the crucifixion. It drags them there, kicking, screaming, and heartbroken. From the first episode, there's an unmistakable weight pressing down on every character. The miracles become fewer. The joy disappears. In its place is confusion, fear, and growing desperation. And no one feels this descent more than Simon Peter, played by Shahar Isaac. His journey is no longer about following. It's about falling. Falling into doubt, rage, and finally, silence. The season opens with fractures forming in the group. The tension among the disciples is no longer hidden. It shows in every argument, every look, every whispered question about what Jesus is really planning. They sense the end, but they can't accept it. And Peter, he refuses to. His faith has always been fierce, burning like wildfire. But now, that fire is burning him from the inside. The man who once walked on water is drowning in fear. For Shahar Isaac, this season is personal. You can see it in the way he carries Peter's growing burden. The shift is subtle at first, a moment of hesitation, a glance that lingers too long, but as the season moves forward, Peter's pain becomes impossible to hide. He is confused by Jesus' silence, hurt by his distance, and tormented by his own powerlessness. He sees the storm coming and feels like he can't stop it. And in this role, Shahar doesn't just act. He unravels. Slowly, painfully, authentically. There are moments where Peter lashes out, not just in anger, but in heartbreak. He wants answers. He wants control. He wants Jesus to fight. But Jesus remains calm, focused, and heartbreakingly silent. That silence becomes Peter's undoing. Because for a man like him, silence isn't peace, it's abandonment. And the more Jesus embraces his destiny, the more Peter feels left behind. This emotional gap between them grows wider with every episode. And yet, Peter stays. He fights to stay, because beneath the fear is love, a love that's desperate and fragile. Peter may not understand what's happening, but he knows he can't walk away. This is the conflict Shahar carries so beautifully. It's not about loyalty versus betrayal. It's about love versus fear. The deeper the love, the deeper the fear of losing it. By mid-season, the emotional weight is crushing. The group is splitting apart emotionally. Judas grows distant. Thomas questions everything. Matthew retreats into himself. And Peter? He becomes the center of the emotional storm. His voice grows louder, his anger more violent. But inside, he's breaking, and viewers can feel it. Every word he says, every tear he holds back, it all points to the inevitable collapse. And that collapse doesn't wait until the finale. It starts early, in small ways. A denied question, a skipped prayer. A moment where Jesus looks past him instead of at him. Peter is a man on the edge, and Shahar Isaac plays every note with painful precision. The trembling voice, the red-rimmed eyes, the body that can't stay still. He becomes a man begging for something to hold on to while everything around him falls apart. But here's the tragic twist. Peter isn't the only one falling. Every disciple is spiraling in their own way. But it's Peter's pain that cuts the deepest, because he was always the strongest, the most devoted, and now he's the most broken. This is where Season 5 finds its power. Not in miracles, not in teachings, but in raw, emotional truth. Faith hurts. Love bleeds. And Shahar Isaacs shows us what it looks like when the rock on which the church was built begins to crack. And in those cracks, we see ourselves, our doubts, our fears, our desperate prayers unanswered. Season 5 doesn't just tell a story. It breaks your heart, piece by piece, through the eyes of a man who thought he was ready to follow Jesus anywhere. Until anywhere became the road to death. By the time Season 5 reaches its midpoint, Peter's internal struggle has transformed into something far more dangerous. Silence. The shouting has stopped. The arguments fade. But the pain? It's louder than ever. Shahar Isaac delivers some of his most heart-wrenching work not in dialogue but in stillness, in glances, in clenched fists, in the way Peter watches Jesus with eyes full of love and heartbreak, unsure whether he's following his Messiah or losing him. There's a moment in the season where Peter no longer tries to understand Jesus. He simply watches, not with awe, but with confusion and fear. The man he gave up everything to follow now seems unreachable. Jesus is focused, calm, deliberate, almost detached. And while the other disciples start to drift into shock or spiritual numbness, Peter holds on to every word, trying to decode the man who once called him rock. But the meaning is lost now. Or maybe it's just changed. What does it mean to be a rock when everything is crumbling? Shahar Isaac's performance becomes haunting in these scenes. His eyes are full of questions that never get answered. His expressions carry the burden of 1,000 thoughts left unspoken. The weight of being the leader among the disciples doesn't make Peter stronger. It isolates him. When the group fractures emotionally, Peter becomes the one expected to hold them together. But how do you lead others when your own faith is shattering? As Jesus begins preparing the group for his final days, the words hit Peter like knives. Not because he doesn't believe them, but because he does. He knows what's coming, and he knows he's not ready. There's no more pretending, no more courage, just dread. And for a man like Peter, dread quickly turns into desperation. One of the most devastating themes of Season 5 is Peter's deepening sense of helplessness. He was always the man of action. Draw your sword, take the lead, fight back. But now, action is no longer the answer. Jesus doesn't want to fight. He's choosing surrender. And for Peter, that feels like abandonment. That inner storm, the collision between love and confusion, becomes the fire that burns beneath every scene. And Shahar never lets us forget it. His pain is raw. It doesn't need explaining. It just is. The tension between Peter and Jesus intensifies with every quiet moment. Every unanswered question, every time Jesus speaks about his death with peace, Peter hears it as betrayal. Why aren't you fighting? Why aren't you saving us? But those words never come out. They linger behind Peter's silence, and it's that silence that hurts the most. Not because it's weak, but because it's full of a love that doesn't know how to let go. And then, just when Peter begins to bury those emotions deep inside, Judas starts to act. The camera never lingers on Judas too long, but the shift is clear. He withdraws, he questions, and Peter sees it. He senses something is wrong, but he's too wrapped in his own struggle to stop it. That guilt begins to creep in. The idea that maybe if he had been stronger, more faithful, more attentive, maybe none of this would happen. Shahar Isaac brings that guilt to life in a way that's subtle but crushing. A twitch of the eye, a forced breath, a sudden turn away when Jesus walks past. These aren't dramatic outbursts. These are the quiet movements of a man drowning under the weight of disappointment, both in others and in himself. This is where Season 5 becomes unbearable in the best way. Not because of the plot, but because of the performance. Shahar doesn't just play Peter, he feels Peter. He carries every regret, every fear, every shattered hope right in his body. And then comes the turning point. Jesus begins to speak plainly. One of you will betray me. The air shifts. The disciples panic. Questions erupt. But Peter, he grows still. Because in that moment, all the emotions he's buried come flooding to the surface. Betrayal, pain, doubt, rage. And none of it is directed at Judas. It's directed inward. The emotional collapse is no longer hidden. It's written on Peter's face. He doesn't trust himself anymore. And that self-doubt becomes the most powerful force of all. As the Last Supper looms and Jesus washes feet with a quiet grace that feels like a goodbye, Peter begins to break down from within. And Shahar plays it with painful honesty. He lets the audience feel every ounce of weight on Peter's soul because it's the calm before the storm. And Peter knows he won't survive it intact. Season 5 doesn't scream its tragedy. It whispers it. It lingers in moments of hesitation, in eyes that can't meet, in hearts that know the truth but can't accept it. And at the center of that slow, emotional destruction stands Peter, falling apart in silence, holding love in one hand and fear in the other, and knowing, deep down, that both are slipping away. As the final moments of The Chosen Season 5 unfold, something unexplainable takes over the screen, not with spectacle, but with silence, weight, and truth. The tone shifts, the world slows down, and suddenly, the disciples and we realize there is no going back. This is the beginning of the end, and every frame of this season's ending makes that heartbreakingly clear. The episode closes in on a deeply emotional point, the full acceptance of what's to come. Jesus, portrayed by Jonathan Rumi, carries a peaceful yet sorrowful expression that speaks louder than words. The disciples, especially Simon Peter, feel the crushing burden of reality settling in. They understand now that following the Messiah was never going to lead to an easy victory. It was always going to lead to sacrifice. And it's not just the characters who feel this weight, the audience does too. Every fan who's followed these characters from the beginning, who has laughed, cried, and believed alongside them, suddenly finds themselves holding their breath. The show doesn't rush this moment. It sits in it. It forces the viewer to feel every emotion, every doubt, every piece of sorrow as if it were their own. Shahar Isaac's portrayal of Simon Peter reaches new depths. His silence speaks volumes. His eyes, filled with emotion, betray the storm within. For a man who once walked on water, now he must walk through fire, emotionally, spiritually, and soon, physically. The pain of knowing that he might fail Jesus again, that he might not be strong enough to face what's coming, is devastating. And yet, we admire him even more for it. Other characters echo this same emotional arc. Matthew's quiet heartbreak, Mary Magdalene's trembling faith, and Andrew's look of helplessness all come together in a powerful symphony of human weakness clashing with divine purpose. These aren't just biblical figures anymore. They've become people we know, people we understand, people who reflect our own struggles. The final scenes do not offer comfort. Instead, they offer truth. The truth that this journey, no matter how painful, is worth it. That love, real love, the kind that sacrifices, forgives, and heals, is not soft or easy. It demands everything. But perhaps the most powerful part of this ending is what it doesn't show. The silence, the stillness, the camera lingering on faces, on tears, on hands held together in prayer. No dramatic music, no sweeping speeches, just the reality of what it means to stand beside Jesus in his final days. As the credits roll, fans are left stunned, not by a twist, but by a truth that cuts deep. Season 5 doesn't end with a bang, but with a heartbreak so honest it feels sacred. And as viewers sit in silence, many will realize this show is no longer just a retelling of Scripture. It's an invitation. An invitation to walk this road ourselves, to feel it, to carry it, and to find ourselves somewhere between doubt and faith, fear and love. This is more than a show. It's an experience. And Season 5 has forever changed what it means to follow The Chosen. And just like that, Season 5 of The Chosen leaves us with more questions than answers. But not in confusion, in conviction. We've watched the disciples stumble, rise, and grow. We've witnessed their fears, their faith, their loyalty, and their heartbreak. But most importantly, we've seen ourselves in them. This season wasn't about grand miracles or flashy moments. It was about the cost of following a calling, about what it truly means to walk with someone who knows the end and chooses it anyway. That kind of courage doesn't scream, it whispers. And Season 5 whispered right into the soul. Shahar Isaac and his co-stars have delivered performances that weren't just emotional, they were transformative. Every look, every word, every pause pulled us deeper into a story we thought we knew, and now we realize we were only scratching the surface. As we wait for season 6, one thing is clear. The Chosen is no longer just a show. It's a movement of the heart, a journey through love, pain, surrender, and hope. And this jaw-dropping ending, it wasn't the end at all. It was a door opening, inviting us to walk further, to feel deeper, and to believe more boldly. So take a breath. Let it all sink in. Because if season 5 has taught us anything, it's this. The real story has only just begun.